Ayana had been counting down the days. It was their 5th wedding anniversary, and she wanted everything to be perfect. She booked a beautiful dinner at one of Lusaka's finest restaurants, picked out her favorite gold dress, and even had a cake made with the words, "To forever, Muta and Ayana." She lit candles around the house, played their favorite song on repeat, and smiled to herself as she imagined the look on his face. 5 years of marriage. It hadn't always been easy, but she believed love was worth fighting for. But as the hours passed and Muta still hadn't shown up, a strange feeling crept into her chest. She tried calling, once, twice, 10 times. No answer. She sent him a message. "I'm waiting for you, love." Still nothing. Her stomach twisted, but she kept hope alive. Maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe his phone had died. Then came the moment that shattered her world. A friend sent her a photo. Muta on a beach, laughing with another woman. They were dressed for a romantic getaway. The caption, "Weekend escape with my heart." Ayana's hands shook. The woman in the photo wasn't just anyone. It was someone familiar, someone too close. The food got cold. The candles burned down. Her heart broke quietly, piece by piece, in that soft, golden dress. Ayana sat at the table they were meant to share, staring at the untouched cake. It was supposed to be a celebration of love. Instead, it was the night she realized the man she gave everything to had already given his heart to someone else. Ayana sat there in silence, the soft flicker of the candles casting shadows on the wall. Her gold dress still hugged her body, but it felt heavy now, like it carried all her pain. The room was quiet, except for the sound of her phone buzzing every now and then, with friends asking how the night was going. She didn't reply. What could she say? That the love of her life was on a romantic trip with someone else? That she was sitting alone at a table meant for 2? She didn't even touch the food. The steak had gone cold, the wine untouched. The cake still read "To forever." It was almost laughable, but she wasn't laughing. Tears slid down her cheeks one after another. Slow, silent, hot. She didn't scream, didn't break anything. She just sat there, hurting so deeply it felt like her chest might crack open. Hours passed. Midnight came. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from her cousin Tandiwe. "Hope you're okay." That made her cry harder, because deep down, something in her gut whispered that Tandiwe knew. Maybe she always had. Ayana finally stood up, took off the dress slowly, and folded it neatly on the bed. Her hands trembled. Her face was swollen. But something in her eyes had changed. The pain hadn't disappeared. It was still there, burning. But now there was something else growing beneath it. Something fierce. She walked to the mirror and stared at herself. Not with pity, not with shame, but with the kind of silence that comes right before a storm. That was the moment. The shift. The exact second her tears stopped falling like rain and started roaring like thunder. She said nothing out loud. She didn't need to. Her heart had made a decision. No more begging. No more hoping. No more shrinking to fit someone else's story. That night, alone in her room, Ayana began to write in an old journal she hadn't touched in years. The first words she scribbled down were, "This pain will not be wasted." She didn't know exactly what would come next, but she knew this. The woman who cried in gold tonight would never cry the same way again. The morning after that painful anniversary, Ayana woke up with swollen eyes and a heavy chest. She didn't want to believe what she'd seen. Muta on that beach, smiling with another woman. But what hurt even more was the growing suspicion in her gut. There was something too familiar about the woman in that photo, the way she touched him, the way he smiled at her. And then it hit her like a slap. It was Tandiwe, her cousin, her own blood. Ayana froze. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone, heart racing. A flood of memories came rushing in. Family dinners, girls' nights, the way Tandiwe would ask about Muta with a little too much interest. The way she'd show up uninvited sometimes, claiming she just missed Ayana's cooking. Ayana had trusted her, like a sister. She had even opened up to her about her marriage struggles, her fears, her dreams, everything. Now it all made sense. Every late-night message Muta brushed off. Every weird look her friends gave her when she talked about her marriage. The silence wasn't random. It was chosen. They all knew. She started calling friends. At first, they acted shocked, but soon, the cracks showed. One admitted they'd seen Muta and Tandiwe out together, but didn't want to get involved. Another said, I thought you already knew. Ayana's hands shook as the truth unraveled. Her heart wasn't just broken, it was betrayed by everyone she thought she could trust. She sat alone in her living room, surrounded by memories, wedding photos, old gifts, framed family pictures. Everything suddenly felt like a lie. How do you heal when the knife in your back came from both the man you loved and the people you called family? The worst part wasn't even the affair. It was the smiles, the lies hidden behind hugs, the fake laughter, the phone calls where Tandue said, "I love you, cousin," while sneaking around with Ayana's husband. How do you ever trust again after that? Ayana cried again, but this time the tears felt different. They were thick, angry, bitter. She let them fall, not because she was weak, but because she was finally seeing everything clearly. No more illusions, no more pretending. She looked at her wedding ring, then slowly took it off. Not in a dramatic way, not with a scream, just quietly, carefully, like someone laying down a weapon. Because in that moment she realized this wasn't just heartbreak, it was war. And Ayana was done losing. Ayana sat by the window, the moonlight casting soft silver on her skin. Her heart was still bruised, her trust still shattered. The pain hadn't gone away, not even close. But after crying for nights, after the silence from friends and the betrayal from the two people she loved most, something inside her began to shift. She didn't want revenge, not anymore. She didn't want to hurt them the way they had hurt her. She wanted something else, something stronger. She wanted her life back. So she picked up a pen and grabbed a blank page from her old journal. And with hands still trembling, she began to write. Not to Muta, not to Tandue, not to anyone else. She wrote to herself, to the woman she hoped to become one day. "Dear Ayana," she began, "if you're reading this, it means you made it through." Line by line, she poured her heart out. She wrote about the pain. Yes, the deep, aching pain, the betrayal, the silence, the moments she felt like disappearing. But then she wrote about her hopes, her fight, her fire. She told her future self to keep going, to rise, to become the woman who doesn't just survive heartbreak, but builds a life that makes the pain worth it. You will not be defined by this. You are not just what they did to you. You are more. You are fire. You are softness and strength. You are becoming. She wrote until her hand cramped, until tears blurred the ink, until the page was soaked in emotion. But when she stopped writing, a strange calm settled over her. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel broken. She felt powerful. That night, Ayana folded the letter and tucked it into her journal. She whispered to herself, "I'm not going to break. I'm going to build." She got up, took a shower, and washed the pain from her skin like it was dirt she didn't need to carry anymore. She braided her hair slowly, like her grandmother once taught her, and looked in the mirror, not for flaws, not for sadness, but to find the woman still standing after everything. Ayana didn't have a plan yet. She didn't know how to start over, where to go, or what her next step would be. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't staying in that same story. That chapter was over. And writing that letter, that was her first step out of the sorrow. It was quiet. It was simple, but it was everything. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is choose herself. Ayana didn't have much left. No savings, no support, no one to lean on. Her marriage was over, her family ties broken, and her heart still healing. But what she did have, buried deep inside, was a fire. Quiet at first, like a small flame, but strong enough to keep her going. One morning, she woke up and told herself, "I may have nothing, but I'm not nothing." That sentence stuck with her. It became her fuel. She remembered how, years ago, her grandmother had taught her how to mix natural oils for the skin, for hair, for healing. She used to love those moments, sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching her grandmother blend ingredients with care and wisdom. Those memories came rushing back like a lifeline. So, with the little money she had left, Ayana went to a small market in Lusaka and bought a few empty bottles, some ingredients, and a simple table. She stayed up all night mixing oils in her tiny kitchen, using old recipes, her own intuition, and a lot of hope. She handwrote each label herself and came up with a name, Her Roots. It wasn't just a product, it was a piece of her story. The next day, she set up a small stall in the corner of the local street market. At first, people just walked by. She smiled anyway. She offered samples. She explained every ingredient, every benefit, with passion in her voice. Day by day, more people stopped. Some came back. Some brought friends. Her oils started gaining attention, Not because she had fancy packaging or a big shop, but because people could feel her heart in every bottle. She used social media to share her journey, not just the products, but the story behind them. Her posts were raw and honest. She shared about her heartbreak, her healing, and how creating these oils had helped her feel whole again. One video went viral, then another. People began to say, "This isn't just skincare, it's soul care." Within months, her roots was no longer just a small table in the market. Local shops started calling, then beauty bloggers, then newspapers. Ayana's face, once hidden in tears, was now in interview, smiling and glowing with pride. But what mattered most wasn't the money or the fame. It was the feeling, the knowing, that she had built something from her pain, that every bottle carried her strength, that every sale was a reminder. She didn't just survive, she rose. Ayana didn't wait for someone to save her. She became the woman who saved herself. And from that fire within, a new life began. Ayana never planned to go viral. One quiet afternoon, she sat in her small but cozy home, the same one where she had once cried herself to sleep, and decided to film a short video. It wasn't fancy. No filters, no makeup team, no professional lighting, just her natural glow, and a heart full of truth. She spoke gently, but every word carried weight. She shared her story, not for pity, but for power. She talked about the betrayal, the heartbreak, the silence from the people she loved. She talked about how she used to sit alone, wondering if she'd ever feel whole again. But then her voice shifted, stronger, brighter. She told the world how she picked herself up, how she started selling handmade oils with nothing but a table, a dream, and fire in her chest. She spoke about healing, real healing, the messy, painful, beautiful kind. At the end of the video, she looked straight into the camera and said, "Your pain doesn't have to be your prison. You can turn it into your power." She posted the video on her page and closed the app. No expectations, just truth. By morning, the notifications wouldn't stop. 10,000 views, then 100,000. By the end of the week, the number hit 2 million. People from all over the world started sharing her video. Comment sections flooded with messages. "This made me cry. I needed this today. You just saved someone's life." Women who had never met her were calling her a sister, a light, a voice they'd been waiting for. Some even started calling her the Phoenix of Lusaka. Ayana couldn't believe it. She walked through the same market she started in, and strangers stopped her just to say thank you. One woman hugged her and whispered, "I was going to give up. Then I saw your video." Her small business exploded overnight. Orders came in from places she'd never even heard of. Interviews, podcasts, articles. Everyone wanted to know who this woman was, how she turned ashes into gold. But Ayana stayed grounded. She kept mixing her oils by hand, still writing little notes to include in every package. Notes like, "You are not your past," and "Healing looks good on you." She didn't chase the fame. She embraced the purpose. Her glow-up wasn't just about looks. It was her energy, her spirit, her strength. People couldn't stop talking about it because it wasn't fake. It wasn't a photo shoot. It was real, raw, and powerful. Ayana became proof that even the most shattered heart can shine again, not just quietly, but loudly enough to shake the internet. One quiet afternoon, exactly 1 year after that unforgettable anniversary night, Ayana heard a knock on her door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Business was booming. She had just wrapped up a live video for her followers, and her home smelled of fresh oils and lavender. She opened the door, and there he was. Muta, the man who broke her heart into 1,000 pieces. The man who left her in a gold dress with candles burning and food growing cold. He looked different now, tired, smaller, like life had humbled him. He forced a smile, the same smile that once melted her, but this time, it had no power. "Ayana," he said softly, "can we talk?" Her heart didn't race. It didn't break. It stayed calm. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her, and crossed her arms. "Talk about what?" she asked. Steady and cool, he began to explain that his relationship with Tandiwe had fallen apart, that they'd been fighting, that it wasn't what he thought it would be, that he missed Ayana, that he made a mistake. Ayana listened quietly, but her eyes didn't flinch. Inside her, something powerful had grown, something stronger than anger or even sadness. It was peace. He told her he missed her cooking, her laughter, her warmth. He said he kept watching her videos, saw her face everywhere, and couldn't believe how far she'd come. "You've changed," he said. "You look amazing." She nodded. "I have changed," she replied. "And not just on the outside." Muta began to cry. Real tears. He knelt down, begging for another chance. Said he'd do anything. Said he was lost without her. But Ayana didn't move. She wasn't cruel. She didn't scream or slam the door. She just stood tall, a woman who had already cried all the tears she would ever cry for him. "I loved you," she said gently, deeply. "I would have done anything for you. But you broke me in a way that forced me to find myself. And I did. I found her, the woman I was always meant to be." He looked up at her, desperate, but the truth was clear. She wasn't his anymore. Ayana walked back to the door and paused. "I forgive you, Muta. Not for you, for me. But you don't get to return to the empire you left in ruins. I built this with pain in my chest and fire in my bones. And now I rise for me." She closed the door, not out of anger, but out of love for herself. Ayana never imagined that her pain would one day lead to this. From crying on her kitchen floor to standing in front of flashing cameras, she had come a long way, a full circle, but on her own terms. Now her face was on billboards across Lusaka. Her voice was being shared in schools, on talk shows, and in homes across Africa. Ayana had become more than a survivor. She had become a symbol, a crownless queen who built her own throne. It started when a women's organization reached out to her after one of her healing videos went viral. They told her, "You're not just healing yourself, you're healing us too." That message stuck. It lit something deep inside her. She agreed to partner with them, not for fame or money, but because she knew how dark it could feel to be invisible and broken. She remembered every woman who messaged her saying, "Your story feels like mine." Soon, she was leading workshops on self-worth, financial independence, and emotional healing. Not in boardrooms with stiff chairs and cold coffee, but in real spaces, community halls, open markets, backyards full of women and girls. She spoke in her language, with her heart, and told the truth. She wasn't perfect, and that was exactly why they listened. The campaign, called Reclaim Her Crown, chose Ayana as the face of their Pan-African movement. Not because she had the fanciest resume, but because she was the story, the proof that a woman could lose everything and still become more powerful than ever. When the campaign launched, women from Kenya to Ghana to South Africa began posting their own rebirth stories, using the hashtag #HerCrown. It became more than a trend. It became a wave. But Ayana stayed grounded. She still mixed oils on some nights, still replied to DMs from women who were in the place she once was. She didn't wear her crown for praise. She wore it to light the path for others. At one major event in Nairobi, a young girl asked her, "Did you ever think you'd be famous?" Ayana smiled and said, "I never wanted fame. I wanted freedom, and now I get to share it." She walked onto that stage in a vibrant African print dress, head held high, not because everything was perfect, but because she was no longer afraid to be seen. Once a woman left behind, now a woman leading the way. Ayana didn't need a prince. She didn't need saving. She crowned herself, and now she was helping thousands of other women find the courage to do the same. The night of the interview, the whole country was watching. It wasn't just another celebrity moment. This was Ayana, the woman who had risen from heartbreak, betrayal, and silence, sitting on a national stage with cameras pointed at her, lights shining in her face, and millions waiting to hear what she had to say. She wore a simple dress, no diamonds, no glitter, just confidence. Her natural hair was pulled back neatly, her skin glowing with the softness of someone who had healed from the inside out. The host welcomed her, voice steady, but even he seemed a little nervous. Everyone knew this wasn't just another guest. This was the Ayana. The questions started gently about her business, her viral videos, her rise from nothing. But as the interview went on, they went deeper, into the pain, the betrayal, the night everything fell apart. Ayana didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't attack anyone. She told the truth, but with grace. She spoke about Muta, about the anniversary she spent alone, about finding out that her cousin, someone she once braided hair with as a child, had taken her place, and how no one warned her. But the way she spoke, it wasn't angry. It was powerful. She didn't name call. She didn't play victim. She said, Sometimes the people closest to you can be the quietest when you're in pain. That hurt more than anything. The audience went silent. She talked about the letter she wrote to herself, about the first bottle of oil she sold, about standing in the market, praying someone would stop and try what she'd made with her own 2 hands. Then she shared what it felt like to rise, to go from forgotten to followed, from abandoned to admired. She said, "I didn't climb out of that hole with help. I built my own ladder out of every tear I cried." The host leaned in, clearly moved. "If you could go back and speak to the Ayana from a year ago," he asked, "what would you say?" Ayana smiled, gently but fiercely, and said, "I'd tell her, they thought they broke you, but power looks better on you than pain ever did." The entire studio fell silent. Not a single clap, not a single sound, just stillness, like everyone had taken a breath at the same time and forgot how to let it go. And just like that, her words lit a fire across the continent. People started tweeting it, sharing it, posting it on t-shirts and posters. Power looks better on me. It became a slogan, a mantra, a movement. Ayana didn't ask to be a leader. She became one by choosing herself again and again, in a world that once tried to make her feel small. And that night, under the bright studio lights, the world didn't just hear her story, they felt it. Ayana could have stopped at success. She had the fame, the business, the glow, but deep down, she knew her story wasn't just about her. She remembered the nights she cried alone, the silence, the shame, the feeling of being broken with nowhere to run. And she knew there were thousands of women still stuck in that place, waiting for a sign that healing was possible. So, she created that sign. In the heart of Lusaka, she opened a beautiful shelter, soft yellow walls, bright flowers, and rooms filled with warmth and peace. She named it the Rebirth Center, a safe space for women who had been betrayed, abandoned, or forgotten. Not just a roof over their heads, but a place to breathe again, to start again, to believe again. Every wall was covered with art made by women who had found their strength. Every room had mirrors with handwritten messages like, "You are not what happened to you," and "This is not the end." Ayana made sure no woman walked in feeling like a victim, only like someone in the middle of a powerful comeback. She offered therapy, workshops, and small business training, everything she once had to figure out on her own. And on the front door, in bold letters, was a message she'd once whispered to herself: "You can rise too." Ayana's pain had become purpose. Her healing had become a home. She was no longer just surviving. She was building a legacy that would help others rise from their own ashes, just like a phoenix.